Hi, guys, and welcome to the fourth concept of the cardiovascular system. In this concept, we're going to talk about the fetal circulation. It's very important we understand the basics of fetal circulation. This is because we will get to see some structures related to the fetal development, and we need to understand that. And we need to know what are the very basic concepts and the differences between the fetal circulation and the adult circulation. This is important to let us know if there is abnormalities after birth and why some structures will get to see them in the heart itself or in the body because it's related to the changes that happened during fetal circulation and after birth. Now, everyone knows that the blood, it comes back from everywhere to the right atrium, and from the right atrium to the right ventricle, and then it goes through the pulmonary trunk to the lungs, gets oxygenated, comes back, all right, to the left atrium and then to the left ventricle, and it gets bumped through the aorta to everywhere. But remember that there are two things that do not work in fetal life, which are the lungs and the GI system. So the baby does not breathe and he does not eat. In that case, there will be two major changes happen during fetal life. One of them is that the lungs that do not work, so there should be a change at that level. And the second thing is in the GIT, because in the digestive system where we eat the food and we get the nutrition, it was supposed to come back through the portal vein, and then it gets processed in the liver, and then it goes back through the inferior vena cava back to the heart where we can get the nutrition from the food. But in fetal life, there is no food, so we need to get all the nutrition from the mother. So let's now follow what happens in the fetal life and how do we make up for that change. So the oxygenated blood comes from the mother by the umbilical vein, and the umbilical vein is basically the left one because the right one gets disappears early in development. So this is the umbilical vein. It brings the oxygenated blood all the way from the mother with the nutrition, with the oxygenation, with everything that we would ever need in fetal life. And when it comes in here, it comes by the umbilical vein. And then as it reaches the liver, now we need to make a shunt because the liver does not work, and we need to make a shunt between the umbilical vein, which takes the blood from the umbilical vein to the inferior vena cava, the oxygenated blood, and then it goes all the way through the inferior vena cava to the right atrium. And in the opening of the inferior vena cava, there will be a valve that directs the blood from the right atrium, to the left atrium. Why? Because this is the oxygenated blood we're taking from the mother. So we really need to take all that blood, bypass everything here, and take it to the left atrium and then left ventricle, and then we pump it through the aorta to the body. But what about the superior vena cava? It brings deoxygenated blood from the upper part of the body of the fetus. That's okay. It comes in here to the right atrium because everything comes back to the right atrium, and then it goes to the right ventricle. And when it comes to the right ventricle, the blood becomes mixed because we already have oxygenated blood coming from the mother, from the inferior vena cava. It got redirected to the left atrium, and some of them of course will fall in the right ventricle. So in that case it will be a mixed blood. Now, how can we make sure that the blood that came from the inferior vena cava, which was coming from the mother, it can go to the left atrium by the foramen ovale? So it's an oval opening. That's why we call it foramen ovale, because we want to bypass the pulmonary circulation because the lungs are not going to do anything. So we want to take the most amount of oxygenated blood from the right atrium to the right ventricle, as if we did the function of the lungs and we brought everything back from the lungs. So that will be done by the foramen ovale. But after some time, that it will be closed before birth, and we're getting ready for the lungs to work, and it will become fossa ovalis. Now, that is what happens to the blood as we take it all the way to the left ventricle and pump it to the whole body. All right, but still we have lungs, and still we have blood in the right ventricle. What are we going to do with that? Yes, we will pump it to the lungs. This mixed blood, it will go to the lungs. But then when it goes to the lungs, it's going to find that everything is closed there and the lungs do not work. So they will come back. And to come back, we need to make another shunt between two arteries, and that is going to be the ductus arteriosus. So the ductus arteriosus is a duct between two arteries. It's going to be between the pulmonary trunk and the aorta, because the blood needs to be pumped back to the whole body, and because there is no place to go in the lungs as it's filled with amniotic fluid. So we have ductus venosus. It's a duct between two veins, because we are bypassing things happening in the liver, because we don't have anything coming from the food. So we have ductus venosus between the umbilical vein and inferior vena cava, between two veins. That's why we call it ductus venosus. And we have another shunt between two arteries. And now you guys know the reason why we have this and that. And that is between two arteries. And that's going to be the ductus arteriosus between the pulmonary trunk and the aorta. And we will pump the blood, which is going to be mixed, of course, because we have here mixed blood, and everything will reach here, and it goes all the way to the body. All right, so it has that amount of blood, and then things go back through the venous system like we all know. Okay, so remember important things. This is a nice diagram that I already drew before the recording this video to save time, and that is the liver. Okay, so remember that everything makes sense, and everything is related to the embryology. So when we look at the liver, remember when we talked about the umbilical vein, it was this. So after birth, it becomes ligamentum teres because it's serous in shape, it's rounded. And we had this duct between the umbilical vein and the inferior vena cava, and that was the ductus venosus. And after birth, that's going to be ligamentum venosus. And that's why we call this umbilical fissure. You will take that in the digestive module. And so here we have the ligamentum teres, which is the remnant of the umbilical vein. And here this is the ligamentum venosum, which is the remnant of ductus venosus after it closed. And that was making the shunt to the inferior vena cava. And remember that the boundaries for the caudate loop was the inferior vena cava and ligamentum venosum. And the boundaries for the quadrate loop was the gallbladder fossa here, and the ligamentum teres, fissure for ligamentum teres, and between them we have the portal triad. So this is an H-shaped fissure, and now you know what makes the fissure and how you will be able to identify them, no matter how you're seeing the liver from the backside, whether you're seeing from above or below. Once you see the gallbladder down, you know that the gallbladder is suspended down, and at that level you have the ligamentum teres, because this is the entrance of the umbilical vein, and up you have the inferior vena cava. So at that, parallel to that would be the ligamentum venosum, because that was the shunt between the umbilical vein and the inferior vena cava. So this is just a text that would help you to know the shunts before birth and what do we have after birth. I hope you guys grasped that concept. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and see you in the next concept.